Hey everybody, and happy Friday to you guys. I'm sure y'all probably ready to get your weekend started, get into some things. And I'm going to do this video before I get into some things. Wink, wink. But anyway, so I'm sure that you guys have been catching all of these latest developments when it comes to Jay-Z and his partnership with the NFL. And you know, how this whole thing with the Colin Kaepernick, it's very confusing. I think a lot of people are very confused by it. And it's been interesting to watch how people have been squirming and twisting themselves into a pretzel for the last 2 days since it's Jay-Z. Okay. Hove, the Kang, right? It's just been really funny to watch. But before I get into the Jay-Z portion, because that's super important, I want to basically start with Colin Kaepernick and how what he started morphed into something else, and that's why a lot of people are confused here. Okay. All right. So 2016, I think it was like a 3 years ago yesterday is when this whole thing got popping. Now, prior to Colin taking a knee and somebody asking him, remember, because that's how it started, he had been doing it just like Marshawn Lynch had been sitting, but nobody paid much attention to the fact that Marshawn had been sitting during the anthem all this time. Nobody really said a word. Nobody thought anything of it. But I guess a camera caught Colin Kaepernick sitting on the bench during the national anthem. It went viral. And when asked about it, he explained very thoroughly why he was doing it. And it was about taking, just silently protesting police brutality and oppression against people of color, black people. All right. Remember, this was a time you had all these black and brown bodies being shot in the street, but black bodies were just being shot in the street by police, no accountability. Nobody was, there was no kind of like accountability taken, basically, right? And so he eloquently explained his position. Now, of course, it became a big thing. All these people was like, oh my gosh, he's protesting the flag. He's protesting the anthem. How dare he? How disrespectful. Colin consulted with one of his, I guess, former players who was also a veteran. And he told Colin that the respectful thing to do would be to kneel. Remember, he was sitting at first. The guy told him, the vet said, the respectful thing to do is when we show respect, when we kneel. And so Colin started to kneel. All right. And then it became a thing. So at every game, he was kneeling, even though to the boos, to people hissing, to people threatening him, to call him all kinds of names. Eric Reed, his teammate, was also kneeling next to him. Other guys in the NFL started to take a knee. Now, of course, like anything that gets a lot of attention, it became a trendy thing to do when all these other people started doing it and gentrifying it, so to speak. And the movement became about something other than police brutality. It became more about standing against something. If you just wanted to be a contrarian, in some cases, they were doing it. They were forgetting what it was about. Remember, then it kind of turned into like, we're not protesting police brutality. We're protesting the anthem, right? And then it seemed like people were protesting for different things. Originally, remember why he was doing it. He was peacefully protesting police brutality. He was not protesting the NFL. When it morphed into this whole NFL thing after the fact, when in January, after the 49ers season was over, Colin Kaepernick went into free agency and he was not picked up by another team and has not been. Now, a lot of people say, oh, well, he was just upset because, he was a second string quarterback. He couldn't get a job. He was just mad. Now, let me explain something to some of you people that have those feelings. You can have those feelings, but please understand that Colin Kaepernick still to this day is tied with Tom Brady for the second lowest interceptions in NFL history. The only person that beats them at the top is Aaron Rodgers. Please understand that. He still has something in the records. So, and there were other men that were being picked up, men that they literally almost like pulled out of their house after 2 or 3 years of not playing and put them on a team. And so it was obvious that he was being blackballed. And that's when the NFL boycott came about. It was not immediate. It was not immediate at all. That was when it started. That's when the NFL boycott started. And then people were on with Cap. And they saw that he wasn't getting a job when it was obvious that they were literally pulling other people in in spite of him. Okay. All these celebrities got on board and, and they started to support Kaepernick. Okay. Kaepernick, in the meantime, started Know Your Rights campaign. That's when he was going all over the country. Eric Reed, and his girlfriend, Nessa, and they were educating young black men and young men of color, like Hispanic boys and stuff like that, how to deal with police. Okay. He had donated well over $1 million to all these different organizations. All right. Including Meals on Wheels. So he was doing a lot. But he couldn't be picked up from a team. He was not getting picked up, and people saw that. And so people, again, were supporting him, supporting his movement, supporting all the stuff he was doing. So then he finally decided to sue the NFL for collusion, for purposely keeping him out. All right. There was proof. He could prove it. Him and Mark Garagos got a lawsuit going. Now, eventually they settled. Okay. We don't know for how much. People can speculate. They don't know. We don't know. When you take a settlement, oftentimes you sign an NDA. So he could not speak on the amount. He could not speak on the settlement itself. That does not mean that he couldn't speak about police brutality. And that's the problem, is that a lot of people are having this misunderstanding that him signing this NDA means he can't speak about police brutality anymore. That's not true. If you follow him, you know that's not true. So it's unfortunate that people don't seem to just have common sense, but whatever. I'm used to that. Now, let's move forward. That was 3 years ago. Okay. Hasn't been working. Still working out. No job. Jay-Z has been supporting Colin Kaepernick pretty much from the beginning, right? Even as far as last January, the last Super Bowl there was, he and Meek Mill were discouraging Travis Scott from performing in the Super Bowl. Now people want to say, oh, he just didn't think he should play second fiddle to Maroon 5. Bullshit. That's a lie. He didn't want him to perform at the Super Bowl. They didn't want any of those guys to perform at the Super Bowl. All right. Travis Scott did. Big Boy did. But it was really in support of just trying to support the movement. Because remember, no NFL. Rihanna wouldn't perform at the NFL. Cardi B said she wouldn't perform at the NFL if Cap wasn't playing. There were people that said, you know what? We out. We not supporting these people. Now, fast forward to a couple of days ago, we see this meeting with Roger Goodell, Jay-Z, and they just whooping it up, kikiing it up. And, Jay-Z's speaking, he's almost stumbling. You can kind of hear that he's a little uncomfortable, which I'm sure he probably was. All right. But he said, we're past kneeling. Now, I don't know what he meant by that, but a lot of people took offense to it. It was interesting to see how people were taking this visual of Jay-Z sitting with Roger Goodell when, again, a few months ago, he couldn't be bought by the NFL. Remember, he turned down the NFL because they were trying to get Jay-Z supposedly to perform. He wouldn't do it. And now this is what we see. And some of us are just a little disturbed by it. We don't understand it. We didn't understand it because it just made us have the side eye. Because again, his partnership is really more in the entertainment part of the NFL when it comes to like the halftime show. Now we see that there's supposed to be some kind of social justice component in there. And yet I realized that Colin Kaepernick's not a part of the conversation. Now, there's kind of conflicting reports. Jay-Z supposedly said that he did talk to Colin. Colin Kaepernick's girlfriend, Nessa, said no, that did not happen. They never spoke. I don't know. But it's interesting to me that, remember, why the NFL was never supposed to combat police brutality, right? That was not the whole point of it. It morphed into something else, but the NFL was never going to combat police brutality. Colin Kaepernick honestly just wanted to peacefully protest police brutality, and he was penalized for it. Of course, it turned into something else, but it was never so that the NFL could combat police brutality. That's not their job. Now, if anything, I would like to think that Jay-Z would have partnered maybe with the NYPD or something like that. Like, there could be something there. I don't know. That's just my thought on it. But it did make me feel a type of way, because I'm sitting here watching all these people who were so for Cap, like I'm with Cap, all of a sudden like F Cap. Well, he ain't important. He want that good anyway. You know, Jay-Z, he about his business, man. He a businessman. You know, it's Jay-Z. You know, he about his money. Jay-Z's a billionaire. What do you expect him to do? And it's just funny to me, because had Kanye West been sitting in this very seat that Jay-Z is sitting in, people would be cooking him right now. He would be flamed for doing the very thing that Jay-Z is appearing to do. I recall Kanye West saying something about he wanted a seat at the table. Remember when he wanted to sit with the rich white designers and people just like call him a sellout? He was a coon. He was all these other things. And now that Jay-Z is sitting at the table with these guys, it's like, oh, I don't know how to feel about that. Maybe this is a good thing. It's strategic. Perhaps it really is strategic on the NFL's part, though. Now, listen, back in the day, Jay-Z was supposedly part owner of the Nets. Now, that's a bit misconstrued, because Jay-Z owned only a few shares in the Brooklyn Nets. Matter of fact, if you break it down, he owned 1/15 of 1% of the team. That's almost like he's just a honorary owner, okay? But yet 1/15 of 1%, his face was plastered all over Brooklyn as being this owner of the Nets. And you know why his face was plastered everywhere? Because the Brooklyn Nets wanted to build the Barclays Center. And they wanted to move all those black folks up out of there so they could build their fancy stadium, their fancy, basketball stadium or whatever you want to call it. And they needed a black face. And they sold it using Jay-Z's black face. Look, you got a black owner. You finally got a black owner. Now, of course, Jay-Z has Rock Nation, so he eventually had to sell off that. So I don't believe he's even an owner anymore. Okay, that's been a while. He's no longer owner because he has Rock Nation Sports. Which leads me to the new developments today that I just read about an hour ago. Jay-Z is supposedly, according to TMZ Sports, Jay-Z is supposedly going to be a part owner of an NFL team. Now, according to TMZ Sports, they don't know what team it will be. They just know he will have significant ownership in some team. They don't know when, and they don't know how much of what is significant. But they know that he is going to become part owner. So maybe, just maybe, all right? I've never called him a sellout. I never necessarily thought he was, because I think he's definitely done some things as far as social justice that would lead me to believe that he is for people. But then at the end of the day, he did help white folks move black people out of Brooklyn, with the gentrification, with the Barclays Center and stuff like that. At the end of the day, this man is a billionaire. Okay. So I'm wondering if this so-called ownership, I hope it's not 1/15 of 1% of a team, like they did him with the Brooklyn Nets, so that he can become the face of the NFL, and black people will buy into watching the NFL again, and it'll be like F Cap. I don't know, but I just find it really interesting. I think the most interesting thing I have seen in the last 2 days is not necessarily what Jay-Z has done, is how people have been reacting to it. As I've said, it's just funny to me, because these same folks, now all of a sudden it's like, oh, F Cap, oh, the same folks would have killed Kanye for what Jay-Z is doing right now. You do know that these owners in the NFL are all big time Republican big-time donors of Donald Trump. And yeah, okay, Jay-Z can sit at the table with the dudes. That's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a conversation and sitting there. But, you know, unless you can get some change, unless you can own something, which I hope that his ownership is significant, it don't mean a thing. Because remember, at the end of the day, the NFL cannot combat police brutality. This is what this has been about. We want social change. We want real change here. Colin just wanted to peacefully protest that. I'm sure now, hopefully things will start getting done. Hopefully we can see some real change here. But for Jay-Z to say something, we're past kneeling, don't say, I don't know how to take what he meant. Maybe he didn't mean it bad like that. All right. Things have to be done. Things hopefully will get done. Him owning a team, yeah, it's great to have somebody in ownership, but what will that change about police brutality? Because in the end, that's what this was about from the beginning. Colin Kaepernick was a casualty of it. He was a casualty of protesting it. But at the end of the day, I don't think black men are being killed any less by cops after 3 years. So, and now we have a billionaire who's going to get even richer off of it. So what's changed? What has changed? I know we blacks always talking about ownership, and that is important. It really is. But is Jay-Z owning a team going to have any significant impact on your life? I don't think so. It would have been now, you know what would be really, really good, which I hope this is what's going to happen. I'm hoping that now that Jay-Z will have some kind of ownership, which I hope is significant, he will then turn around and Colin Kaepernick will have a job. Now that would be a nice plot twist. That would be a beautiful plot twist. I don't want to see these two men on separate ends. I don't want to see them at odds. I don't want to see any of that. It's bad enough that us black folks can't seem to get in lockstep when it comes to anything and have some kind of solid, clear agenda when we're doing anything. And that's why it's so muddled and confusing now, because there really wasn't any clear agenda here. Remember, it went from one thing and it morphed into something else and it morphed into something else, which is why half of us don't know what the hell to think or where to go or which way to turn when it comes to Jay-Z, Colin Kaepernick. Nobody really knows. And hell, for the record, black folks still been watching the NFL, even though they be like, I'm with Cap. They only with Cap on the off season. All right. When it's the off season, they with Cap. And then when when football on, oh, well, whatever with Cap. He took a Saddleman, blah, 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 blah. It's just, we can't never get ourselves together. Look at Gucci. Remember you see how the Gucci thing turned out. It was, I ain't wearing Gucci. And now you see these rappers back in the Gucci. So this just, I don't know. This just speaks to us as black folks. We got to get together when it comes to something. We got to have clear agendas when we move like this and when we do things. But I am hoping for the best. I really want to see how this plays out. I really, really do. But we cannot sit here and act like Jay-Z don't deserve the side eye, because you would be giving it to Kanye West if he did it. And that's all I'm going to say. All right. So I'm about to get into my things, and you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you on the next video.